Hello, and welcome back to our Wellbeing Workshops. My name is Samuel Landau, and together with my wife Shoshana, we are privileged to be the rabbinic couple leading Barnet Synagogue. I'm also a clinical psychologist working in the National Health Service and private practice, and you're joining me today from my office in Lister Hospital in Stevenage. Today's workshop is entitled Making Space. It is the second of our two-part series of wellbeing workshops. Last week's presentation, which was entitled My Wellbeing Toolbox, I highly recommend it, can be found on US TV Catch-Up. Today, though, we're going to be talking about making space, creating spaces for well-being and for health and happiness to flourish. What are we going to be talking about today? Well, the outline of today's workshop is, first of all, a note to bring a piece of paper, bring a pencil, but most importantly, bring yourself. It's the same caveat that we made last week, that if you want to make any notes and to keep a record and to keep some of these ideas for going forwards, and that's great, but also most importantly, bring yourself to this session. For the next 40 minutes or so, if you can, take away some of the distractions that might always be present and see if you can give yourself just some time for you. And we're also going to be doing some quite practical work and meditations together. So it's really great if you can have a little bit of private and quiet time just for you and just for yourself. But if not, don't worry. You're still going to gain something from the workshop, listening through and then being able to put these things into practice later on. We're going to start by looking at a different model to what we looked at last week. This is a compassion-focused model from compassion-focused therapy, which is going to help us to think about how we can achieve emotional balance in our lives. That model, which we'll present together and we'll learn about together, will then also offer us an opportunity to communicate to ourselves and to others how we're feeling in terms of our well-being at this moment in time. Once we've got that model and understood it and found that there are certain times that we just need to seek out balance and seek out green and soothing spaces, so then we're going to think about how we can actually make space. And we're going to remind ourselves of the stop tool that we looked at the end of last week's session. And then we're going to segue into a more expanded stop moment, a 3-minute mindfulness breathing space, which has the acronym NOW. We're going to use quite a few acronyms because it's just very helpful as a memory aid. So it has the acronym NOW to give us a go-to place that we can seek out throughout the day or throughout the week to help us find moments of calm, moments of green. We're going to base and seek lift, different ways to expand upon our well-being and actively, not just in terms of our emotions, but actively in terms of what we're doing, find ways of increasing that well-being. And then in the final part of making space, we're going to do another 3-minute meditation, but this one not from the tradition of mindfulness, but rather from the mystic or Hasidic tradition, a 3-minute hisbodedus, a guided conversation with Hashem. After that, we're going to talk in a quite a focused way about kindness, because it's very nice to talk about making space and having time for improving our well-being, but that assumes that we give ourselves the opportunity to do that. We're not always so kind to ourselves. And so this section is going to think about how we can be kind to ourselves, both in our thinking, using the acronym THINK, also in the way we relate to ourselves, and maybe the inverse sometimes of the old adage from Rabbi Akiva, love others as you love yourself. This way, at this time, treat yourself the way you treat others. Because how frequent is it that we can be kind to others and yet harsh to ourselves? The final part of being kind is actually acknowledging that kindness to others, if it's not necessarily in this sort of intense and dutiful caring role, but rather when our proverbial cup spills over, that loving others spreads our own love and improves our own well-being as well. And we'll finish that section with a note to all the mind bullies out there, all those little voices in the back of our heads saying, you don't really deserve this. You actually have to be stuck in a place of sadness and non-well-being We have to talk to those mind buddies out there. And we'll conclude the workshop with some final thoughts. So let's begin by just noting what sort of place in terms of our emotional traffic lights we're going to be focusing on today. Last week, we introduced the traffic light model as just a really simple model to describe where is my emotional world at the moment. Am I red? Am I out of control? Am I feeling like I could fly off the handle any second? Am I in significant distress up here in red? Am I amber? Am I sort of managing, but not really? I'm really feeling quite wobbly at the moment. I could shoot up to red with a very small nudge. I'm really not feeling settled. Or am I feeling green? Am I feeling generally whole, generally well, able to manage any of the vicissitudes or difficulties that life is throwing at me at the moment? I can keep it all together. Now, last week we focused on moving from red to amber and amber to green. We talked about when we're above the red line, so when our distress is really high, we just need to tolerate that distress and learn to bring it down. Because above the red line, some of those wise mind components, some of those thinking strategies where we talk to ourselves and tell ourselves stories, a bit more tricky to do when you're flying off the handle. Like the person that said to me, when they're in a highly anxious state, they don't want the psychologist to say to them, just go and meditate. No, meditation has its place, and we're going to talk about it today, but not when I'm flying off the handle, not when I'm in like an anxiety. It's not the right time. My information processing has shut down. Today, though, because we've already covered red to yellow, yellow to green, we're going to talk about staying green. We're going to talk about regulating our emotions in green, keeping healthy and whole, and also interpersonal effectiveness, making sure that our relationships are good, are useful, are part of our repertoire as well. And we're going to do this in this green area by using a model from compassion-focused therapy. There's a psychologist called Paul Gilbert who pioneered this way of thinking about emotional regulation and emotional balance. It's called compassion-focused therapy. And what Paul Gilbert does is, from his perspective, he looks at the evolutionarily different structures of the brain and describes different brain systems or different emotional systems. On the top left, he's got the drive system, a system which pushes us on. Its function is to help us achieve our goals, to consume, to accomplish tasks. Maybe the parody of the drive system is some banker in the center of London scurrying around, high power, high energy, working hard, working out hard, working 12, 13, 14, 15 hours a day. Or maybe it's the housewife looking after her kids, making sure the house is sorted, going from one pile of laundry to the next, one set of dishes to the next, looking after this kid, driving them there, making sure everything is in place. It's just as stressful, it was just as high-powered, highly driven as the banker, just in a different context. That's the drive system, the go, go, go system. Then we've got the threat system, the red system. Its function is to manage threats, to protect, to survive, to seek safety. And maybe the parody of the threat system, the person who's totally governed by their threat system, is someone for whom stress is always present. They're always stressed out, they're always anxious, they're always on edge. Whatever, any demand that comes upon them, any email, any request, any phone call, it's automatically already raising their stress levels to a high place. That's the parody of someone who's entirely ruled by their threat system. And then you've got the soothing system, whose function is to slow down, to soothe, to rest and digest, to find places of safety, of kindness and care. Maybe the parody of that is someone who just relaxes all the time, sitting back, enjoying themselves, maybe a glass of whiskey in one hand, a nice piece of food in the other, whatever it is. And that's the parody of someone who's got too much green in their lives. There are not that many people like that, but they do exist. And what Paul Gilbert says when it comes to compassion-focused therapy is that really all these three systems need to be in balance. The person who has got a strong drive system, if they don't have a little bit of threat to pull them back, they're going to burn out. The person who's totally dominated by their threat system is going to find everything anxiety provoking. They won't be able to move forward. And someone who's just trying to manage their systems with the red and the blue, who's just trying to either pull ahead or pull back, they're not going to have anything which calms things down. They're always going to be hyper activated. And that's also not a healthy place to be. And so what we might do with someone, if we were mapping this for a person, is we try and draw how large is the blue system, how large is the red system, how large is the green system. And what we often find is that the green system is the one which is underdeveloped and not given enough attention. And therefore, what happens to someone when their green system isn't looked after? They become hard, they become cold, a bit emotionally shut down, or emotionally activated to a level where their emotions aren't healthy places anymore. And so do in terms of making sure that we can stay green on our traffic light system is linking that up to staying green or building green in the compassion focused therapy model. And these three areas, the threat area, the drive area, the green area, they give us a language. They give us a language to communicate with others. My supervisor has got teenage kids, and she always says that when her kids and her discuss at the end of the day how they're doing, they use this language of red, blue, or green. You know, one kid might come up and say, I just had such a red day. I had such a red day. I was constantly on edge, feeling fight or flight. I was angry. I was feeling fearful. Another one will say, I had such a blue day. I was driven, was going. All my energy was being put into a particular task. I felt so much drive. And then maybe they'll both say, do you know what? We could both do with a bit more green. And so they'll construct an evening together, the teenagers and their mum, how they can bring a little bit more green to balance out the day. And that sort of language of maybe we just need a bit more green really fits nicely with this picture from my new favorite book, the Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse by Charlie Mackesy. We brought some of his pictures last week. I'm going to have a couple more this week. And the mole says, what do you want to be when you grow up? Kind, said the boy. Can we seek out kindness? Can we offer kindness to others? Can we offer kindness to ourselves? Can we make space to allow the green circle to have its time too, so that we don't get into this competitive threat reality where the red is taking over or the blue is taking over, but instead we're in a greater place of balance. So the first thing that we can do to make space is just to stop. We need to create some place, some space within our daily routine, within our life, where we can just stop. This is a slide you might remember from last week, but it's such a helpful introduction to the rest of the session of making space, of this part of making space. I wanted to repeat it over here. So STOP is an acronym, S, stop, just pause for a moment. You know, we can be so moving so fast between red and blue, or just driving into blue, or anxious with red and angry with red, that sometimes we just need to pull the time apart and slot in a space of green. Stop, just pause for a moment and T, take a breath. Notice your breathing as you breathe in and out. Observe what's going on at the moment as I've created this space that I've carved out for myself. What thoughts, what feelings, what body sensations are here right now? What is drawing my attention? And we'll do that in a guided way in just a moment with our 3-minute breathing space. And now that I've done that, let's just pull back. Let's just stand back a little bit, get a helicopter perspective, as if I'm a helicopter up here looking down on me, taking sort of what we might call a meta perspective on the situation, noticing all the different parts that are going on. It's almost like I can step out of this river that is rushing by and just stand on the bank and take a look. And also always knowing that whatever is happening, it always does pass. This will pass. And finally, the final P for the stop is practice what works and proceed. make a decision, make a choice what I can do right now. And we'll talk about choice spaces more towards the end of the presentation. Once we've stopped, once we've made some space, maybe we can actually give that space a little bit more flesh, so to speak. Give it a little bit more helpfulness by gathering my mind in a 3-minute breathing space. I'm going to share with you a really simple but really effective 3-minute breathing space meditation. It's coming from this book over here. This book is called Mindfulness, A Practical Guide to Finding Peace in a Frantic World. It's by Mark Williams, who's one of the main people in this country who's brought mindfulness meditation into daily life with a program called Mindfulness-Based Cognitive Therapy, MBCT. And it was also by Danny Penman, who's a journalist, who's made the book accessible. So I definitely recommend the book, and it's something that I use in running groups of MBCT because there's lots of really nice ideas and helpful meditations here. And so I'm going to invite us now just to spend 3 minutes, 3 short minutes, but 3 very powerful minutes doing a breathing space meditation. Now, often in a meditation course, you'll be advised to find a quiet place, to sit in a dignified and focused posture. But part of the beauty of breathing space is if you can't do that, it doesn't matter. Just grab the time anyway. But if you can, and you're watching in such a manner that this is possible for you, so sit up in a dignified and direct manner, demonstrating my intention to focus in these 3 moments. And let's begin. If possible, close your eyes. If not, maybe just bring your eyes gently to the floor in front of you, rather than having them dart around noticing other things. We want to be focused on this moment and not have our attention drawn here, there, and everywhere. Then bring your awareness to your inner experience and acknowledge it, asking, what is my experience right now? Essentially, we're just becoming aware. This meditation is in the shape of an hourglass, starting big, spreading out my awareness, narrowing in, gathering and focusing my attention, and then with that renewed focus, expanding the attention once again. But step 1, becoming aware, expanding my attention. Just what's here? What thoughts are going through the mind? As best as you can, acknowledge thoughts as mental events rather than fact. It's just a thought. What thoughts are here? What feelings are here? Turn towards any sense of discomfort or unpleasant feelings, acknowledging them without trying to make them different from how you find them. Just noticing the feelings. What body sensations are here right now? Perhaps quickly scan the body to pick up any sensations of tightness or bracing, acknowledging the sensations, but once again, not trying to change them in any way, just noticing them. Step 2, gathering and focusing our attention. So now redirecting the attention to a narrow spotlight on the physical sensations of the breath. Move in close to the physical sensations of the breath in the abdomen, expanding as the breath comes in and falling back as the breath goes out. Follow the breath all the way in and all the way out. Use each breath as an opportunity to anchor yourself into the present. The breath is always here. You don't have to think about it. If you did, we'd all have stopped breathing long ago. And if the mind wanders whilst you're attention to the breath, that's normal, don't worry. Just gently escort the attention back to the breath. Step 3, expanding our attention. Now expand the field of awareness around the breathing, so that it includes a sense of the body as a whole. Your posture and facial expression, as if the whole body was breathing. Breathing into the whole body. If you become aware of any sensations of discomfort or tension, feel free to bring your focus of attention right into the intensity by imagining that the breath could move into and around the sensations, as if I'm breathing into that discomfort, breathing into that tension. In this, you are helping to explore the sensations, befriending them, rather than trying to change them in any way. If they stop pulling for your attention, return to sitting, aware of the whole body, moment by moment. And that's 3 minutes. And this sort of hourglass exercise, starting broad, just gathering myself into this moment to notice what's happening, coming in to a focused place of just focusing, just thinking about, just attending to my breathing, and then expanding out, but with a renewed attentionality, with a new focus, with a new kindness, breathing into the whole body and focusing in on any place that might be uncomfortable. That's something that can be done at any time. It's something you can practice every day, maybe just before bed, or maybe in my lunch break before I go to grab something, maybe in the morning, whatever it is, whatever time works for you. If you practice this can just be something that is pulled out at times of difficulty, or proactively every day to make a little space of green for me. And for those who want to just have a very quick way of remembering this, now. It can be done right now. N, notice. Notice what's going on. O, observe. Observe my body, observe my breath, observe my breathing. Observe my thoughts, my body sensations, my feelings. Observe it all. And then W, wise mind. Allow that kind, wise part of me to hold on to this moment and to choose what to do next as I come out of that breathing space. In terms of making space and making spaces of green, so we all need a good base. This is a slight repeat of last week, but I think it's so important I wanted to bring it one more time. B, body care. We know there's such a strong connection between how our bodies are feeling and how our mental health, how our well-being is being experienced. That it's not simply that we have this sort of box on top of our shoulders that is detached from the rest of our body, but healthy body, healthy mind, healthy mind, healthy body. There's a symbiosis between the two. And the more the evidence is accruing in this area, the more we find how the body and the brain are linked. And so, again, the holy trinity of body care is 1, exercise, 2, diet, 3, rest. If we can get those in place, to have frequent, moderate exercise. We said last week about 150 minutes a week of moderate exercise, where I'm bringing myself to panting because of the cardiac exertion. 2, healthy diet, putting the right things into my body. And 3, rest, getting enough sleep to be. It doesn't have to mean that you're always well rested, but enough sleep that you can manage, that you're doing okay. That's going to be such a good, strong foundation to build a groundwork of green, a groundwork of well-being and balance on. Now, it's easier said than done, I know. There could be some very basic strategies, like don't bring into the house things that you wouldn't want, things that you know are going to be easy to snack on and fall into bad dietary habits. So just, even if there are certain treats that happen outside the house, fine, but leave them out the house. At least the house itself, there's healthy snacks and healthy treats rather than anything else. In terms of exercise, it's always great to have an exercise buddy, to have accountability and partnership with. It's always more fun to ride or run or swim with someone else. And rest, even something like an alarm system, a timer on the phone when the devices go off, Practical strategies like leaving the bedroom only for sleep and sex and not for any other activities, such as bringing work into the bedroom. It makes the bedroom a haven of rest rather than something where my work day or my other parts of my day spill over into that room. And particularly with devices, because of the blue light glare, it's really important to turn off devices or put a filter on the blue light before a couple of hours before bed, so that my ordinary body patterns of awake and rest are activated, rather than constantly being told by the light sensors in my eyes that it's day, because all the blue light is coming in. Achieve. Do something which gives me a sense of achievement, of mastery, of being able to do something. Sometimes, if I've got a few jobs to do, I'll even spend a couple of minutes just writing all the tasks down on a piece of paper so that I get the pleasure of ticking them off as I go. C, connect with others. It's so important to have good relationships. Human beings love to love. We need to love, and we need to receive love. So connect with others, with friends, with family, with community, and with God. And E, enjoy. Have some fun. Play, experience pleasure. These are all things that help that green space, that help us to find that balance, that soothing, that calming. And a slightly expanded version of this is, if you want to raise me up, Josh Groban notwithstanding, then seek lift. That's an acronym. So seek lift. Seek a lift. S, see the bigger picture. Know that there's a bigger picture to this particular story. It's always so helpful to get out of my blinkered perception that I might have got stuck into for whatever reason, and see if I can stand backwards. Sometimes I need someone else to help me do that. To have a conversation with a friend who will say, but remember, just remember. And then they'll say, there's a bigger picture here. And all of a sudden, I'm pulled out of that sort of trapped space, and I get to see things a little bit differently. And that can raise me up. E, exercise regularly. We've spoken about that. E, enjoy play, fun, and creativity. We haven't spoken about creativity yet, but so many of us find creative outlets to be so helpful. I know that for our daughter, we have an arts and crafts cupboard that whenever she wants to just take herself off and paint something or do some drawing and some coloring, she's got that there, and it really just calms her down. But coloring isn't just for kids. Coloring is for anybody. Music, art, poetry, writing. There's so many different creative outlets. Knitting. So many people have taken up hobbies and different things during lockdown. So creativity can be really, really good for feeling whole, feeling happy. K, kindness, being kind to ourselves, being kind to other people. That's going to occupy the second half of today's workshop. L, look after your body. We've spoken about that in the context of rest and diet. I, interact, connect with others. And just a quick note about connecting with others. We live in a world of constant connection, seeming connection, social media connection, all these different things. And whilst these things aren't in themselves a problem, we shouldn't think that connection through a WhatsApp message can suffice or can replace really good, healthy, COVID secure face-to-face connectivity. There's something quantum, that's the word that's been used by a lot of people recently, quantum, about being in a room with someone else who you care about and cares about you. There's something so powerful about just sitting there, being together, making a real human connection that transcends any Facebook feed or WhatsApp message. So really seek out quality connections. And that's what people find, by the way, the evidence about. There's this big debate about social media and the evils of social media we get told about. Well, actually, what they find is that once a interaction is of a high quality, then that's much more important than quantity of interactions. You could have 100 posts on Facebook, but one quality interaction is going to mean more than all the 100 different bits and pieces that fly in and fly out and ping in and ping out. F, find meaning. As I said last week, we're good as Jews at finding meaning in suffering, but we can also find meaning in other things too. Just finding meaning in my day, making this day a meaningful day. What can I do today that is going to be meaningful? Can I help someone else? Can I activate a potential within me that I haven't yet reached or I want to continue to develop? Can I find ways to do a mitzvah, a good deed? Learn something powerful to transform my soul. Talk to God in a way that will eke out some meaning and light in this time of darkness. Can I find meaning? And T, take notice. Just be aware. Sometimes a day or a week or a month can feel like such a rush. You know, with COVID, everyone's saying the days, they just flow one into the other. It's not such a great place to be. I don't feel like there's any landmarks. One of the great pieces of advice that was given to me before my wedding day was on the day itself, it's going to be such a rush. We're going to be moving from one thing to the next. Every 20 minutes or so, I was told, every 30 minutes or so, just pause for 5-10 seconds and soak up that moment. Have moments where we can just soak up this view, this breath, this moment of sunlight as I move from one place to the next. Take notice. Raise me up and seek lift. And so the final part of this first part of the workshop, which is about finding space and making space, is another meditation, another 3-minute short meditation, this time from the Hasidic tradition, and it's a very brief hisbodedus. Hisbodedus is an interesting word. It means to be alone. And traditionally, people would go out by themselves into the forest or into nature and just talk to God. This line at the bottom of the slide is from Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, and he writes, it's very good to pour out your heart to God as you would to a true good friend. Now, sometimes these conversations with God haven't happened in a very long time. Sometimes we haven't even had a conversation for years, if at all, and it's difficult to find the words. So here's a guided hisbodedus, a guided time to be alone. Hisbodedus is literally from the word to be alone, which was actually used in Israel recently to describe quarantine and lockdown, is to be in bidud, to be alone. But of course, a Jew is never alone. We're always there with Hashem. We're always there with our Maker, who just wants to hear from us, who just loves us so deeply. And so here's a guided hisbodedus to give some words to that conversation. Once again, if you can, find a space that is focused, that is quiet, that's great. But if not, just stop what you're doing. Take a deep breath. Thank God for any two things in your life, one current, the other current or past. Thank God for any two things in your life, one current, the other current or past. Ask God for two material things, one related to today, one related to the future. Ask God for two material things, one related to today, one related to the future. Ask God for two spiritual things, one related to today, one related to the future. Ask God for two spiritual things, one related to today, one related to the future. Ask God to help the Jewish people in two ways. Ask God to help the Jewish people in two ways. Ask God to talk again tomorrow and say thank you. That's the end of the 3-minute exposures. That comes from a book called Where Earth and Heaven Kiss by Ozir Bergman, which is a guide to Hasidic meditation. So we've made some space. I'm feeling like there's a lot of green at the moment, thank God. But let's now talk about kindness. Some people need to talk about Kevin. Well, we need to talk about kindness, because it's all very well and good giving all these strategies for finding green spaces, soothing, calming spaces to get that balance between our red, our blue and our green. But we also need to offer ourselves the opportunity. We need to be kind to ourselves and compassionate to ourselves to allow this to happen. We need to do this within an atmosphere of kindness. So we're going to talk about 3 different ways that we can do that, as well as a quick note to the mind bully at the end of this section. First of all, in our mind, in our thinking, we need to make sure that our thoughts are kind and our thoughts are helpful. So it's almost like we've got a 5-stage test for any thought, which is based on the acronym THINK, T-H-I-N-K. We need to test the thought through those different questions to see if this is a thought that we want to be having right now. First of all, T, is the thought true? Is it a true thought? Or is it based on some irrational belief or emotional moment? Even if it's true, H, is it helpful to be having this thought right now? For example, I'm late to a meeting. The late Rabbi Landau is late to a meeting. So it might be true that I'm late, but is it helpful to be thinking I'm a failure? Is it helpful to be thinking that? Probably not. Even if it's helpful to be thinking that, I'm not sure why it would be helpful, but is it an inspiring or important thought? Is it something that I really want to be devoting my attention to? Is this something that's going to bring me up, to inspire me, to make me feel it's really important? Oh, you're a failure because you're late. Or is it maybe less inspiring, less important? N, is it necessary? Do I need to have this thought right now? Is this an important, is this a needed thought? Even if it might be important, but is it needed? Do I need it? And K, after all that's said and done, it might be true, it might be helpful, it might be important, it might be necessary. Is the tone kind? Is this a kind thought? Am I being kind to myself with this thought? If not, let's reframe the thought. T-H-I-N-K, make sure that we filter the thoughts. Why are thoughts so important? This is where we come onto the ABC model. A, antecedent, which means the situation or the trigger. B, belief, your automatic thoughts. C, consequences, your emotional and behavioral response. Now, the traditional example that's given for this, which helps us realize that often we go straight from A to C without realizing there's a B in the middle. There's an example that is given. Imagine you're walking down the street one day, minding your own business, and all of a sudden you see coming towards you one of your best friends, but they're in a really big rush for some reason, and they just rush past you, almost brushing against your shoulder, and they don't say a word. They don't even acknowledge your existence. So A, antecedent, the situational trigger, is best friend rushes past, doesn't even acknowledge my existence. C, consequence. Well, automatic consequence seemingly is I'm going to be angry, be sad. I'm going to send them a text message saying, why on earth? How dare you do that? Didn't you see me? Why wouldn't you even acknowledge me? Because B, what's happened in the middle, what's the belief, what's the automatic thought that's been triggered by this moment is maybe they don't like me as much as I like them. Maybe I'm a failure as a friend. Maybe they want to pull back from our relationship, and all those insecurities and all those concerns jump right in. But what if I told you that the reason that they're running and rushing is because they've just had the most horrible call from the hospital telling them that their parent has just been admitted in respiratory distress after having contracted COVID in the care home. And they're not sure if there's time for this to get to the hospital before they need to induce a coma to intubate? How would you feel now with the same the same trigger, the same moment? The friend rushes past, brushes my shoulder, doesn't acknowledge my existence, but you know that they're on their way to the hospital. What's the consequence? You're probably going to write a text saying, thinking of you, is there anything I can do? And we're not often aware of the B in the middle, the processing that happens in the middle. We had that quote from Viktor Frankl earlier on the stop slide, that the space between stimulus and response is a place that we can have choice, a choice to change our thoughts, using think as a test. Is this a true, helpful, inspiring, or important, necessary, and kind thought? By the way, my daughter likes to be a unicorn. If you had a thought you were a unicorn, would you believe it? We often have this thought-reality fusion. Our thinking, which we get stuck in, makes us think that that's the only truth. But having a little bit of space, a mindful moment, holding up the thought to the light of day and asking, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? It might be kind to be a unicorn if I decide I'm a unicorn, but it's not true. So I can put that thought away just for now. That's the first stage of kindness, I think, is having a little bit of think, having some time to be kind to our thoughts and challenge them gently, seeing how valid they really are. A thought can just be a thought. But also, not just in terms of kindness in our thinking, but kindness in our attitude towards ourselves. There's a great video that I recommend you watch. It has a rude word in it, so don't watch it with your kids around, but it's from the School of Life, and it's called How to Be a Friend to Yourself. And really what the School of Life there is saying is that, we're quite good a lot of the time being compassionate to our friends. Imagine our friend calls us up at the end of a really horrible day and says, I've just had the most horrific day. What do you respond to them? Now, you don't respond, well, you know what, you're a piece of garbage anyway, so that's what you deserve, which is maybe something that we might say to ourselves. Instead, we say to our friend, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that. You've had a really hard day. Why don't you come over and we'll go out and have a meal together, or we'll watch a movie together, or we'll just chat on the phone. Why don't you go home and run yourself a warm bath and put on some music? We know how to be compassionate to others. If your friend calls up and says, my relationship is just no warmth at the moment. It's just no love. It feels like we're always cold to each other. You don't say to your friend, well, you know what, you probably deserve it because you're pretty unlovable anyway. I mean, you're lucky just to have a relationship in the first place. You don't say that to your friend. No, you say, well, maybe it's time to think about making some changes in that relationship so you can get what you need because you deserve it. We're very good at being compassionate to others and giving them the kindness that they need. The only thing is we haven't yet made that friend into ourselves. And so sometimes it's helpful to imagine, if I was my friend in this instance, what would I be saying to them? An attitude of kindness. Just as we can befriend others, let's befriend ourselves. And a final thought about kindness and developing kindness. Another picture from Charlie Mackesy. What do you think success is? Asked the boy. To love, said the mole. Loving others, lighting up others, bringing light into other people's darkness also lights us up too. There's a reason that religious communities are on average more happy, more well. It's not simply because of dogma necessarily or structured routines. It's because religious communities give opportunity for chesed, for kindness, for tzedakah, for charity, for caring for each other, for hope. I've got a picture here of the Hanukkah candles, not just because we're almost going to be celebrating Hanukkah, but something I always think about as we light more and more lights is that the light of the shamas, which serves every other light, or the light is never diminished by sharing its light with someone else. The light is just enhanced as the room becomes brighter and brighter night after night. If I can love others, I can stay strong in myself but spread light too. Feed back into true success, true kindness. So kindness to others allows me to be the proverbial cup that spills over, and so to feel that kindness reflected back in myself. And just as we're coming towards the end of today's workshop, just a little note to all the mind bullies out there. Call it a mind bully, call it a saboteur, call it the evil inclination if you're so inclined. What we often do is when we get into a fight with these mind bullies is that we have a tug of war that has been happening for many, many years. Whether that tug of war is as I stand by the fridge, ready to soothe my distress with overeating or some ice cream, whether it's by the drinks cabinet, whether it's doing activities that I don't really want to be doing at the end of the day, whether it's going through old habits and old thinking habits of denigration, of saying I'm worthless and not worth it, of different places of anxiety and stress. The mind bully says, this is where you've got to be. And we're constantly pulling against the mind bully, and she's constantly pulling back. And as we pull back, we become more and more tired, and the mind bully seems to become stronger and stronger. But what would happen if we just let go of that rope? We say to that mind bully, yes, I know you're here. We're old friends. We've been here many times before. But I'm not fighting anymore. I just acknowledge that you're there, and I'm going to get on with an activity of greater value than fighting you. Well, now I'm not pulling anymore. I'm not being exhausted by that struggle. Maybe I'm just putting my arm around the mind bully and saying, come on, let's go somewhere else. Let's go and do something worthwhile. Let's be kind to you, be kind to me. Let's go and be kind to someone else. Let's go and do a valued activity. Just a few further resources. Never worry alone. If you are worried about you or someone else, speak to your GP. That's what they're there for. There's some great apps for building green spaces and building kindness into life. I quite like Headspace. Calm is another good app. Look on the App Store. There are different things for different people, but there are loads of apps out there. You can just pull up on your phone a moment of meditation, a moment of calm, some music to help you sleep, whatever it is, it's there. There's some great organizations out there. Jamie, Jewish Association of Mental Illness, Mind, Relief, and many more. Search online. Some great organizations, both in the Jewish community and in the wider community, to support people's well-being. Something that can really help is to work with a friend. You might not want to go and work with a therapist or a coach, but sometimes just working with a friend is good enough. You have someone who loves you and you love them, and you can work together to be more well, seeking out opportunities to compare notes and build something special. Making a me bag of tricks. So a bag that I can just pull out when I need a bit more green, that has already present different things that I might like. I don't have to start scrabbling around thinking, oh, what do I do now? No, in my bag, I've got my creative outlet. Let's say I've got my pen and paper for writing some poetry. I've got some soothing salts or bath items if I want to have a relaxing soak. I've got some music ready programmed to listen to, just to take me to a happy place. I've got pictures that lift me, that give me nostalgic memories of happy times. A me bag of tricks I can just take off my shelf and use it when I need. And ultimately, plan, practice, and prepare. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail. But if I can practice a 3-minute breathing space every day, get that bag of tricks ready, try these things out at different times, I will be much better bolstered to keep that green balance in the future. and say some concluding thoughts as we enter into our festival of light. We've been having a time of darkness. You're going to hear this metaphor and this idea many times, I'm sure, over the 8 nights of Hanukkah. But we've been in a time of darkness, how dark it is. And just today, this morning, we were reminded there is light at the end of the tunnel. The first of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccines was delivered this morning. There is a light at the end of this tunnel. There is hope. The late Rabbi Lord Sachs of blessed memory always used to talk about hope. Hope, hope, hope. I can hear his voice saying, we as Jews, we hope. And I don't know why God brought us into this time of darkness, but I do know that despite the difficulty, he wants you to be as well as you can possibly be. He loves you. And if he wants you to be as well as you can possibly be, you can be as well as you can possibly be. There is bright light shining for tomorrow and for today. What have we covered today? Well, we talked about the compassion-focused model, those 3 different circles that we need to try and maintain a balance. Blue, the drive system, red, the threat system, green, the soothing system, keeping those in balance, often noticing that the green system is underdeveloped and therefore something we need to give attention to. That model itself providing a means to communicate to others where I am, and also even to tell myself, I think I need a bit more green. Making space that allowed the green in, a stop, a reminder, a moment of breath, maybe even a 3-minute breathing space, a mindfulness meditation, grasping, pulling together my frayed thoughts into this moment, the hourglass of broad attention, focused attention, and then renewed sense of purpose as we come out of that breathing space and can wisely choose what to do next. The healthy base and seeking lift, lifting this time, lifting this moment, giving myself opportunities to find green. And then a 3-minute Hisbodedus, a Hasidic meditation, to have a connection with God, a moment of prayer and of conversation with a dear, dear friend. And then talking about kindness, recognizing that kindness can be difficult. Kindness in thinking and the litmus test of whether this is a good thought, a kind thought to be having right now, a true thought, a helpful thought. And how thoughts can really change outcomes, the ABC model. Treating ourselves the way we treat others, just as we can be kind to others and compassionate to others. Maybe sitting ourselves down in a chair and saying, come on, you're my friend now. Let me give you advice as I would to a friend. Loving others, seeing that love spill over and compassion spread. And being able to let go of the constant tug of war with a mind bully. Putting my arm around him and saying, or her, and saying, come on, we've got something better to do than carry on fighting this evening. And concluding with that final thought, we can do this. We can shine that light and we can find God's love. God bless and goodbye.